done the salt crystals, and as you can see, there's a nice effect where the color has separated and blurred, and the little pigments have become dots on the page. So sometimes there's big salt crystals and sometimes there's smaller salt crystals, and I think it turned out quite nice. So now I'm going to try something different, kind of inspired by Stephanie Law. I've made up this hexagon shape for like a honeycomb shape for another project, and I want to experiment with this one to see how it will turn out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, which is Daniel Smith Watercolour Ground. I'm going to create some textures on this surface with using these shapes as like a stamp, and then I'm going to go over it with gold leaf once it's dry and create some layers, some interesting textures. So I'll just go around the edge. I won't really go on the main figure. And I've had this for a while. It's actually my boyfriend's. Yeah, so it's kind of dried out a bit. So I'll just open it up. Ugh, it's very crusty. So it looks a bit like whipped cream, I suppose. It's kind of like a plaster. So it's okay if it's thick because, yeah, I'm not too bothered about it. It's about creating textures. I did this really interesting drawing earlier this year, which I used this technique. I just got to find it. I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. You're probably looking at all these pictures going, oh, I want to look at that. I want to look at that. Sorry. I just got to find this image first. I can never seem to find it whenever I want to look for it. In here somewhere. Where is he? Oops. You get to see some of the other bits and pieces I have in this. Oh, is it in there? Nope. Ah, here he is. So here I've used a similar hexagon shape, and I've actually stamped it with ink, and then I've gone over the top with it, this watercolor ground, and then I've drawn over it and painted over it. But I'm going to create some of the textures with this, and see how we go. Yeah. So I'll do another video where I show you some of my visual diaries a bit more clearer. And oh, I love using origami paper to cover these. Oh, looks like a horror story, but it's not. There we go. Put that to the side for now. And so we've got the watercolor ground. I've just put it on some paper because it's going to dry, and then yeah, I can just chuck it out when it dries. And close that. So I haven't tried this before. Don't know how it will go, but I thought it was worth sharing with you guys some of the experimentation process behind me, my thinking, my painting techniques. There we go, got some on there. Like testing it out on here, see how it goes. So give it a try. Probably don't need to press too hard. It's not going to create an exact perfect shape. It's okay if it's a little bit more subtle. Yeah, so sometimes you do feel like, am I wrecking this painting or am I improving it? But I've been learning from some great artists through Instagram and Facebook that you know, it's always worth giving things a try because you never know how it'll turn out, if it'll be a cool idea or a bad idea. As you can tell, I'm not a very neat artist. I tend to have this habit of making quite a mess. But sometimes you find some really beautiful things within the mess. Oops, there we go. Accidentally just dropped that, so I'll just pretend I meant to do that. Don't tell anyone. And this watercolor ground is like starting again with the paper white. So I've used it in the past as a corrector if I've made a mistake on a watercolor painting, because you really can't correct watercolor paintings once you've done something. And the texture is not the same as what it would be with the paper. With the watercolor ground, as you can tell, it's quite gritty, and but it's absorbent. So if you've overworked paper and you need to bring it back, it's a good alternative, this watercolor ground. Highly recommend it. I believe there's some other brands that also sell similar. Art Spectrum do a multimedia ground. It's often sold, I think, as a pastel ground, pastel surface. But I've seen another artist, Cindy Lane, use it, and I figure if she can use it, she's an amazing artist from Western Australia. And yeah, anyone can use it. So working in an art store, I tend to look at a lot of things, and I come across curious art materials that I wouldn't have thought about using if I hadn't worked in an art store. And yeah, so sometimes I pick up on things and go, oh, I could use that. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. I'll have to wash this because I want to use it for other purposes. So just got a cup of water there. I'll just pop it in. And yeah, so that's me for now. I'll come back to this once it's dry. Hi, so I've got another video here of my alchemy painting. In the previous video, I showed you the effect I created with these hexagon shape lino that I cut out and pressed into some Daniel Smith Watercolour Ground, and they're pressed onto the page here, which has since dried, and now I'm going over it with some binder medium from Atelier. So it's a adhesive, and because I want to see where I've worked, I've added some walnut drawing ink. Ideally, I would have liked to have used like a reddish ink rather than brown, but it's enough that I can actually see the effect that the glue, where I've placed the glue, which you can see in this corner here, and these areas I haven't yet to do. So once that is tacky enough, hopefully it's still tacky. I might have to do a few passes of the glue. So I've got some gold leaf here, and I've got some tweezers. And the idea is once it's not wet but tacky, you can apply the gold leaf. Which fingers crossed will work. So I'll get a brush and just press down. onto the surface, and hopefully that will stick to the areas where I've applied the adhesive. Hopefully it hasn't dried out too much. And yeah. So I'm using some small off pieces of my gold leaf because I figure it's only a small effect. I kind of want it to look a bit scrappy looking, so it's okay if it's in little pieces. It's okay if it doesn't cover the whole thing. Ideally, you're not supposed to get your finger oils onto the gold leaf because it will tarnish. So in order to prevent tarnishing, once this painting is finished, I'll go over it with a varnish to seal in the gold leaf. A spray varnish most likely. So it is sticking, which I'm very happy about. I'm going to add some more colour to this image. Already I've started working on the face. I've got my photo reference here, which is a picture of myself. And I've photoshopped some elements in there that I thought I might like to play around with. I did this quite a while ago, so yeah, I'm not sure if I use all the elements, but I've definitely used the pose and the cat and the pouring to the cup. Not sure about the background or the flowers, it's a little bit dorky. So yeah, we'll go from there. So I was struggling with this, where to take it from here, because I quite like a lot of the way that the colour sits on the image, and I was thinking I might play around with the idea of glyphs, I think it's called. It's used in alchemy, so so I've done a circle and a triangle. It actually is quite interesting how it works as a composition element tool. So you probably won't be able to see it right now, but it'll become more apparent as I paint. So what I'll do is I'll start with the outside first and then work my way in. And pretty much using the same technique I did with the dropping the colours in. Just a note about what I did here with the face. It was a lot more pinker than I intended to use, but it's probably actually in keeping with the colours that are here. It's just the contrast with the green and the orangey red, which, you know, if you look at your colour wheel, well, red and green are very complementary to each other. So same with yellow and purple. So what I might do is to tone it down a bit, is to add some blue, just to, yeah, tone down the red and tie in more with the background elements. The cat I've been working on too with the same materials, which I use the Faber-Castell Aquarelle pencils. I didn't use the purple. I didn't use the blue. I used this colour, which is the carmine red, and this one, middle purple pink. So yeah, so I just drew with them, forgetting that when you go over them with a wet brush, they will be a lot stronger colours. So I was working on that late last night. It's a Saturday night. I thought, you know, play around with the colours, and I used my little watercolour pen travel set here. Try to go over it with a bit of gouache, trying to bring it down, some blue. Not that blue, but yeah, this blue here. It looks okay. Oh, and also another thing I did, I went over some of the highlight areas, the areas that I want to keep white, like the eyebrows, sides of the face, some bits on her lip and her nose and her cheeks. And I've done it again down here in her hands. I was just experimenting, so I didn't know how it would work. Kind of wish I'd pulled back a bit again, but you know, you learn. So this is a Staedtler Lumicolor Permanent Glassochrome pencil. It's kind of like a waxy white pencil. It's good for marking all sorts of things. We sell them at work. A lot of hardware, oh, not hardware, a lot of handymen use it. So you can, you know, write on all sorts of things. Probably can write on this shell. So when like handymen are marking their metals to cut, you can't use an ordinary pencil. You can't use an ordinary pen. So one of these is pretty good. It's waterproof, so even if it gets wet, it won't rub off. So they're pretty cheap. Should be able to get them at most hardware stores, news agents or art stores. Anyway, so I'll go ahead and wet this bottom part. Make sure it's all equally wet. And I was struggling with what to use for this. Now I want sort of the colour to drop out a bit and to add on top of the colours already there, so not to use, I thought about using the violet blue, but then I thought, oh, it's just another colour to add to the mix, and I've already got quite a lot of colours, so I thought, like I'm using with the Odd Fade painting that I'm working on, I thought I'd keep to these kind of colours there. Again, you know, you got to kind of make yourself stick to some rules sometimes, especially when you're experimenting. So yeah, just drop this in. I'm not just yeah. Gonna say I'm not gonna do like what I did before and dab it in. I'm gonna just let color sort of paint it in, brush it in. So the circle is probably coming a bit more clearer. So once this dries, I'll go over it again and focus on this triangle area. But before I do that, I might actually work on the hands because I didn't really finish the hands here. Try to use similar colors what I used there. If you're interested in buying the finished painting, it'll be up for sale next month, May. Forget the dates, but it'll be May. I'll try to put the dates in the description of the video. At the Changeling Artist Collective Alchemy auction. It's basically a group of fantasy artists who have put together a group on Facebook, and we've joined forces, so to speak, to support one another and promote one another, and yeah, to sell our artwork, because being a fantasy artist is not an easy job. Being any artist is not an easy job. Selling your work can be a bit tricky, especially some cases it's looked down upon, this kind of style of art, but there are people who love this kind of thing. And then rather than having it in a physical location, because we're all friends from all over the country, including Denmark, England, actually not Denmark. Oh, anyway, I'll check later. Australia, like myself. A lot of girls, a lot of the artists are from America. There's a very much a female focus, only because we started the group on a women's fantasy art group on Facebook. We talked about it and about getting it together, and yeah, so that's why it was mainly women in the beginning. There's a lot more men in the group now. Amazingly talented artists, all of them. Oh yeah, so this area here, I've put some of that wax pencil in. Oh, actually, I used another thing. I can grab it. This is because you can't see it, because the other one you can. Oh, and you can see it here as well. This is Sennelier wax pastel. It's just the clear medium. I don't know if it actually says on here. But it's just transparent wax, pretty much. So I've drawn in those areas with it. I bought it ages ago, meaning to use it for some paintings, but I hadn't got around to it. So I thought this is kind of an experimental painting, just playing around. To be honest, I don't really expect this painting to be sold. Probably shouldn't say that because I want you guys to think about buying it. But yeah, you know, it's more just to get it out there and promote and support the group. And often I find with these auctions that they're just nice to have a group plan, focus, to work on something together, group goal. And oh, look at that. It's all dripping back. Pulling back. Yeah. So some areas it kind of looks a little bit clumsy with that. A bit of gold right there, but oh well. I'm not naturally a neat kind of person. Okay, I'm looking at it now, I'm like, oh, okay, the circle is a bit off center from the figure. But then, I don't know, it's kind of, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it's experiment. Experiment. I quite like that. Brush. Ooh. Okay, and put that down. Spin it around so you can see it the right way up. See how it's looking. Yeah, it looks alright. Now, I thought I might try the isopropyl alcohol on this one. And as I did it on the Odd Fay Changelings card art that I've been working on. So just drop it in. Really pushes back sometimes the pigments, really interesting effect. It seemed, because it's alcohol, I think that's the thing, it dries really quick. Yep, no more. Okay. It'll be interesting to see how the watercolor dries into these little cells of like a honeycomb cell. If it pulls away. I might even lift some areas. I might even soften this circle so it's not so harsh, not so obvious how badly I've drawn the circle. Yeah, so that's alchemy video 2 for now, and yeah, we'll see how we go once it's dry.